All right.
Real good.
And I think, oh, it says it's still working. We're probably actually live, but it's telling me that it's still processing. So
Where to carts?
one moment, please.
Ah, push it. Push it.
Okay, we are live. You said you weren't going to sing.
I mean, I just did though. So where to carts, yo?
Yay, it happened. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Branch of Laurels interview. My name is Ashaxi. I am a member of the Order of the Laurel from the Kingdom of Ontir. And my guest this evening is Fia Meta, known as Fia. And she is also a member of the Order of the Laurel from the Kingdom of Artemisia and a Griffin of Artemisia, which is like the Ontir's Lion of Ontir. It's kind of a big deal. So
that is a big deal award. I would not say I am a big deal, but yes, that is a big deal award.
Well, sometimes you do need to believe your own hype or believe the hype that people try to get you to believe about yourself.
You do. That's a humbling thing to be labeled sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's start out with your origin story. How'd you find the SCA and how did you fall in love with it?
So I kind of have like a two-parter origin story. I, like a lot of people, actually, the first time around, I found the SCA in high school at a fighter practice. My family and I had been taking like a walk in a park, and we saw these people obviously hitting sticks. And I would say, like in high school, I was like a semi-popular kid. Like I was one of those floater kids that was kind of like an in every crowd, but secretly, or not so secretly, I was a gigantic nerd. So when we saw them, like my mom, who of course knows exactly who I was, like, you should go talk to him. You should go talk to him. I also have extreme crippling social anxiety, and so I was like, no, I can't go talk to them.
I'm not gonna do it. You do it.
Yeah, you go with me. So she did, and also this was like 97, so like internet was just. I remember we were excited because we got AOL. There you go, kids. That's old, right? And they didn't have a website, they didn't have an online presence, but they told me a little bit about it, and they said, well, we'll be here next week, come on back. And I was like, oh, so excited, because I was like, cool, let's do this, right? Finally a place for me. And I went back the next week and they weren't there.
Oh no. How they ditched you.
No, I had some super anxiety over it too. And honestly, looking back on it now and like remembering the time frame, it was summer, so it's probably just war. They're probably gone because they'd gone to war, so no big deal. And then fast forward, graduated high school, didn't go to college because I made that choice, got a career with government, and I have now switched to a different job in the government, and I'm getting trained on this new job with this whole brand new team. And the woman training me and one of the people in my new team know each other, and they keep talking about this weird ass shit. And I'm going to say that. I don't care.
Good.
Yeah, weird ass stuff. And then I remember like the first time we went to the break room, they sat next to each other and they both like pulled out hand sewing. And like the one lady, and the one, she's hand sewing like leather and velvet. And I'm like, what is this going on? And the other lady gets out, I kid you not, a Barbie doll that is naked, but she's got some black felt wrapped around it and tied with some string. And like, she's beading a dress on it. And I remember I was like, that's some grown-up stuff. What are you doing? Like, what's Bondage Barbie doing here in the government? And so what's up, girls? How's it going? What's she doing? Luckily, now it is Mistress Bianca, who actually just switched her persona, which I'm sorry, Bianca, I'm not going to say it. It's a Mongolian name that starts with a Z, and I've looked at it about a million times. I'm like, I don't even know. But Mistress Bianca.
You're going to have to learn that.
Yeah, I probably will, to be honest with you. And Mistress Heidi, they knew each other from the SCA, and Bianca and her family kind of invited me to start going with them. And
And
I didn't even need to go to my first event before I knew. Like we pulled up to our first event. I had spent about a month because it was in February. Well, it's February, March area. So past Estrella. And at the time in Artemisia, everything shuts down in February so that we can all go to Estrella. So there was no event like when I first started playing, and I had to wait until the beginning of March. And so I spent that entire time, like this is how you know I'm a lifer. I sat and stared at art like every day. I had a notebook, a spiral notebook where I would write like portrait number, like stuff down and copy and paste it and write what I liked and didn't like. I had whittled it down to French Tudor or Italian, late period Italian. And in the end, I went with Italian because I didn't want to have to wear a hat all the time.
And here you are.
And I'm like, I'm uncertain of this. And I literally had a list of approved names that I'd gotten off one of the archives from the website with me in the car on the way to my first event. And as we're going through, I'm like reading out the names and I'm like, what about this name? They'd be like, oh yeah, no, nobody can pronounce that. Don't do that. Or what about that name? Oh no, we already have one of those and she's terrible. So you probably don't want that name. And we pulled up and it was down to like 2 names, and Fiametta was actually like the name as we pulled up and got out of the car. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess it's Fiametta. I was also looking for a name that would lend itself to like a nickname really well because I'm all about it. And so I was like, Fiametta, Fia, that's great. Although, funny story, for the first year, my SCA card, my name was spelled wrong. I had put an N in there. So for the first year, my name was Fiamenta. Yeah.
Like the fresh taste. Were you a Mento? I don't know.
I mean, as I was super young, yeah, it was a fresh taste because I was like a woo girl. But it means little flame, which is cool because I have like a tattoo of flames and it actually meant a lot to me. And flames have always been one of those weird kind of super edgy teenager likes of mine. So.
Rifkin and I have a whole shtick about flame tattoos, so we'll have to talk about that.
I have a flame tattoo.
That's awesome.
Tattoo on the back of my shoulder, and my device actually has a flamey heart in it. So it's literally a heart in flame. So.
She used to tease me when I was in massage school that I had healing hands of fire and that I should get like classic car flames up my arms.
I do. I just be like, let's do this. I'm up.
That's awesome. You know, I think it's really smart to pick a name that you can get a nickname from. I failed to do that with both my SCA names, and I've been given some unfortunate nicknames.
Yes. Oh yeah. More than likely, if your SCA name does not lend itself to a name, I will give you one. Truth be told, I will give you a name if I love you, and I do love you. I'm giving you a name because Atoxy. Atoxy's not terrible. I'd be like, Atoxy, what's up, girl? You know. But and that's all these people now are kind of like, you've never given me a name. Yeah, I know. Maybe think that they're. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I'm kidding. No,
So do you want to hear the story of my bad first nickname?
Oh, sure.
So my first name, like my sister, I started out sort of with a Scottish persona because, you know, Rob Roy and that other movie had just come out. And
that was the thing.
And that's our heritage and whatever. And so I picked IFA and I went to Pennsic. It was like my 3rd event. And I met Ice Falcon.
Okay.
Andre. And he looked at me and he said, IFA. I farted. I can remember that. So...
Thanks.
That's awesome.
I'm out.
I changed my name very quickly.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't know what. No. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no.
So glad we could be here.
Anyway, so you went to your first event. Had you already sewn clothes for yourself?
So no, at my very, very, very first event, it was Defenders, which is in Salt Lake, in Loch Solon, which is our oldest barony. It was the only 8, and correct me, Artemisians. It was, I think, I mean, it's Artemisia's oldest barony, and I think it was like one of the only ones that was a holdover for when we were 8 and Belt. But it's right on the Great Salt Lake, obviously Salt Lake. So we have.
Oh, so that's Salt Lake City.
Yes, Loch Solon. Okay. It's literally Gaelic for Salt Lake.
Oh.
Yeah, we're really, yeah.
That's creative.
We're super pretty. You gotta be, if you're smart, we choose pretty quite often. I mean, obviously, right? But but it's this really great event that they have every single year in order to pick their baronial champions, and it's to conquer the demon swilling decapod, a brine shrimp, who crawls out from the lock and attacks. And so they have the big tournaments in order to determine who is the champion. And the consort, I've always wanted to live in Bloxholm just for this. The consort gets to wear this super old coronet. It's an iron coronet with flowers on it that are like pastel colors. It's the oldest piece of regalia in our kingdom. But your title for the year is Lady Shrimpbait. I have always wanted to be Lady Shrimpbait. And I can say, every one of you Lady Shrimpbaits out there, I love that you wear that coronet. In fact, we have seen, like, I love when like baronesses and duchesses do it. Like, they put their personal coronet aside and they wear the iron court crown like the whole time.
That is the coolest tradition.
It really is. It's super cool. And I love seeing it. I mean, they literally get somebody to dress up. Usually it's His Excellency Count Raven, who dresses up in a crustacean costume. And they let all the kids like fight him with boffers. He is very, very patient man. I love you, Raven. It's hilarious.
Oh my God, you broke me.
I mean,
continue.
5 minutes in, woo, record. Letting the rest of you Laurels know that's what you got to do. So yeah, but that was my very, very, very first event, and I was very so.
So the shrimp costume didn't scare you off?
No, man. I was like, these is my peoples. These is my peoples. And a funny story, like we got out of the car, we walked over, and like the very first person that Bianca introduced me to was Duke Sean. Which is also, it's good and it's bad because Duke Sean's an amazing person. And I remember at the time, he like, Bianca was like, oh, she's new. And he was like, oh, my lady. And like got down on one knee. It was totally like, your beauty has eclipsed the sun. I'm sure, Sean, that you were paraphrasing something you had read someplace.
He's not watching, by the way.
But it was like one of those moments. And in the core of my fat girl heart, I was like, what? Guy. Also, this was the mullet days. He was talking about the mullet when he was interviewing Misty the other day.
Hot.
Yeah. Super.
Yes.
It was all party though. I don't think there was any business with it. It was all party. But he said this great like flowery poetry, and I was like, and that was it. Like I was hooked. At that moment in time, I was like, this has got to be great. And I had ordered In Service to the Dream on eBay. So I had watched that like 5 billion times before I'd ever come to an event. I'd read the handbook. This is how, vested nerd people. I read the handbook. Yeah.
I'm a rules person too. I read everything I could get my hands on, which wasn't much, but.
For me, honestly, that social anxiety thing, I was so paranoid about doing something dumb and then I would never want to go back. So I didn't want to ruin it by being dumb. And to be fair, like everybody would have just been like,
nobody would have cared.
Nobody probably would have even noticed.
That's one of the coolest things about the SCA is that everybody wants to teach you anyway. So you can be, they want you to be an empty cup.
They do. And then they will.
One says it's just long hair. It was not the mullet days. So.
I remember differently, and I'm younger, so I think my memory's probably better.
Oh,
love you. Still got that pork butt? No, I love it. Who knows? I was overcome though. It literally was one of those moments that kind of changed my whole scope about the SCA. Where that's just not what you get. Like chubby girls don't get treated like that very often. And so to come into an area where suddenly like not only is this dude who's pretty hot, and I knew who Duke Sean was, like can't come in the SCA in Artemisia and not know about Duke Sean, right? Which I do love you, Sean. Okay, that's not me making fun of you. Although that's funny too, because I do make fun of him quite often, and I always tell him, like, he knows that. Like I've said it before, like I'll make fun of you because we have a special friendship, but I will cut anybody else who does it. So but I see, I'll just ramble. Going back, no, I actually had not sewn anything at that point. I was very lucky to have been in choir for years and years on end. And one of the very last large ensemble groups I was in had a very pretty blue fake acetate silk looking princess themed dress.
awesome.
Very much bell sleeves. It looked like a fake cross between a coat hardy with some drops. I mean, but it worked. And I wore that in like a veil. And then I was like, okay, this is for sure what I want to do. So then I sewed my first outfit from the stupid simplicity ever after wedding pattern.
Yes.
Out of shit you not printed quilters cotton. Yeah.
Awesome.
And it was a fake between the Italian wren plus the Burgundian, and I had embroidered like the centerpiece that's all sewn in, by the way. It's not an underdress. And I was super cool. I made my own corset first, which who does that? I made a corset before I made anything else. And I thought I was
really I did too.
Yeah, right? I know.
Yeah.
It's not appropriate for that time frame in any way, shape, or form. And I ordered a set of Civil War reenactment hoops that I took apart and made my first farthingale. Also, doesn't go with that. But my next event was Crown Tournament, and it was Conrad and Cortland. And I know that's
so they won, or they were running the crown.
They were running crown, so they were the king and queen. I think Albreda and Brynmar won that time. But I had seen In Service to the Dream, and I had seen how Luciana had her Excellency Countess Luciana, who I met and cried over, by the way. That's a fun story. She had gifted the consorts like these little corsages, and I had asked, like, is that a thing? And they were like, oh yeah, nobody does that. And so I was like, well, would it be okay if I made them and then gifted them? So I did. I made these cool little corsages, and then Mistress Heidi took me up to her grace at the time and was like, this is a newcomer. She's made these for you. And Cortland, who Cortland, Duchess Cortland, who queen at the time, she was so sweet and wonderful. She invited me to stand court with her and help her give them to consorts. So it was like my second ever event. And she is the epitome of grace. She literally introduced me to everyone as she was handing them out. She was like, this is a newcomer. Isn't she beautiful? And girl, I know you knew my dress was totally terrible, but she was like, I love her embroidery. At one point she looked at me and she's like, are you okay? Because I had this look and I was all, and she's like, are you okay? And I was like, can I be excused for just a second? And she's like, yeah, are you all right? And I'm like, so my hoop skirt has come untied and I'm pretty much just holding it together with the power of my thighs. So can I just go behind? Yeah. And I mean, I literally, because I didn't know ribbon. So I'd used one of those silk satiny ribbons because it's pretty. And it had come untied. And I literally had just kind of clapped it together with the girls holding on for dear life. So that was my first garb I made for myself. I still have the dress.
That's awesome.
Just to get rid of it.
Awesome. I want to circle back to Sean greeting you like that. I think that it goes, that speaks, how that drew you in speaks to the power that knights have that they can use for good. I had a similar experience, and I also felt like, the ugly fat kid all the time growing up. And Duke Skeggy, he was not a duke at the time. He was just a knight, but he came up and helped me carry all my crap into an event, like one of my first local events. And I was like, what is happening right now? Because I do everything for myself, and he like made multiple trips and he was super sweet, and it endeared me to the game. It made me feel welcome in a way. Yeah.
We don't often get in mundanity. We just don't. I mean, like everybody watching, like whatever, like it or not, how many times you get oh, you're pretty. I'm sure. No. Doesn't matter, guys. But in the SCA, it's fantastic because, there's always, and I've said this to so many people before too, like, you want to come play the SCA? Are you honestly looking for love? Because trust me, somebody in the SCA is going to love you. Like, we got all sorts of freaks here. Yeah.
It's true.
Funny story. That's how actually Casimir shined me on, was carrying my stuff.
See, it works. It works.
I'm here to tell you. So, fellas.
But I'm just gonna say, hand kissing is no. That's a no. But offering to carry stuff consensually is is
there you go. That's a big thing. Offer.
Yeah.
The lady may say no. That does not diminish your chivalric act in any way, shape, or form.
Because consent is the sexiest thing of all.
Yeah, hells yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know how we got down this rabbit hole. So
again, we were talking, for everybody else, we were talking about this earlier, that both of us were like, oh God, what are we going to do? Because we were running a little late. And then we were like, I mean, we chat all the time. So,
yeah, so it's going to be fine. We'll be good. I wanted to ask you,
Sure.
So second event, you're already making flower things and bettering the environment that you're in your SCA, which is pretty amazing. How did you start? I mean, what kind of service / art did you start to kind of dive into full bore, and what was your gateway for that? Who was your mentor?
So I was really lucky right off the bat within that first couple of months at the time we had a really big Kingdom camping event called Uprising War. And back in the glory days of Uprising War, it was like 1,000 people. But keep in mind, Artemisia, if I remember correctly, is the smallest per capita kingdom. So when we talk about having, like 800 people in my kingdom,
that's everybody.
Yeah, that's comparatively, like when I first went to like on tier, like I mean, I'd gone to Australia and stuff like that, and Talon Crescent, like I knew what big wars were, but to go to like a craft tournament and on tier that was literally like the size of like our uprising, I was all
yeah, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean it is, but I was very lucky at that Uprising War that I had Bianca and her husband Sir Thorvald kind of just really let me go with them pretty much everywhere. They always offered me a ride. They always let me kind of hang out. But I had hung out with Duke Sean's house so much, and I remember we were in the kitchen and I was cooking, and he very graciously extended hospitality into his house. So my first household is Duchy Argos. It's Duke Sean and Duchess Nisa's household, which is kind of a big deal because I was a member in my own right. I was not there because I was attached to a fighter. I was not there because I was attached to a Laurel, although I ended up making that choice later. So I right off the bat, within like 4 months, got immersed in this huge, super house. And I was really,
and it was a good fit for you.
Yeah, I mean, they all live down here. It was exactly what I was looking for. I mean, I hope they felt the same way. That's always been kind of like my landing spot when things were weird in the SCA. And even though I've moved on and I have my own house, I actually have my own second house and became a peer, and stuff changed and whatnot. That's always been a very safe haven for me, and I've always felt like that's still my eternal home. Duke Sean could be like, I don't know what she's talking about. That's not true. Sean loves me, and I know it, and I love him too. But I was very, very lucky to be surrounded by, first of all, not only a plethora of royal peers and nobility. At the time, Duke Timur had not yet won a crown, but he had been a baron of Lochsollen. He and Tiana had been. So I was surrounded by former kings and queens, former baron and baronesses, tons of peers. And so in the beginning, that was really where so much of the input into my game came from. At the time, the barony I live in now was still a shire, and so we were kind of under still the auspices of Lochsollen. But that was kind of how you played. That was just the way you did it. It was all about how to make the game better, not just for yourself, but for the people in your kingdom and outside in the known world. What could we do? And just whether it was cooking dinner for everybody. I mean, I have so many memories of cooking surf and turf with Sean on Saturday nights in camp, or sheep raising, which was hilarious. And if you haven't seen the video for that, go on YouTube, look up sheep raising.
I'm writing that down because I haven't seen it.
Go look. It's great. One of the best moments of our kingdom. But that was where my influence came, and that's kind of how I learned and how I grew in the game in the beginning. Unfortunately, about a year and a half in to the SCA, I got involved in a relationship, and it wasn't a bad relationship. It just, I was working 2 jobs at the time. I was working swing shift and day shift, and the guy I was dating was only working day shift. So we never really saw each other except for the weekends, and he wasn't interested in playing. And so I could either spend my weekends with my boyfriend or I could go to events. He never once asked me to make that decision. I made that choice on my own to step back from the SCA. And it was about 2.5 years. And when that relationship started to dwindle and I was kind of no longer happy in it, it was that kind of like, I made the choice to give up something that meant a lot to me, and I was no longer willing to sacrifice it. And so I started coming back. Uprising was my first event back that year. And out of it, that relationship ended like in September. So in June, I decided to come back to the game. And then September, our relationship ended. And then, man, that was it. It was full force. And those couple of, like I came back, and those next couple of years, I played so hard. Like really hard, really, really hard. I was single. I had double income at that point. I had no kids. I wasn't attached to anybody. I was in it to win it. So,
woohoo! Yeah. Somebody has posted the video so that in the comments we can there's several of them.
Yeah. Don't disappoint me now, my loves. I'm gonna go back and watch this and be like, I love you so hard. I love you as well. So whoever did it, all of you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Love you, Sean. Oh, hilarious. Braden, thank you, Braden. Hogweave on Braden and Juliana for instrumenting all of that. You awesome. Will see, you will understand. So yeah,
I'll have to check it out.
That's where my influences came until I had a peer of my own, which was troublesome and problematic as well.
So how long did it take for that to happen? And who did you apprentice to?
So when I came back, because I always talk about the before time and when I really came back. When I came back, it took me almost 3 years to apprentice to someone. And that was because I had asked, I asked Her Grace Duchess Karin, who is a Duchess of Duchy Argos. She's a former consort of Duke Sean's, and she is the oldest Laurel in our kingdom. She actually has been laureled as long as I've been alive. So she was not the first Laurel, but she'd been laureled in Aidenville, and she just was that's my mama. I asked Duchess Karin, but like I said earlier, I have such terrible social anxiety that it took me a year to even work up the courage to ask her.
Oh.
And I asked her at like our winter solstice event, which is pretty big for us. It's a big court event. But I was I was not pregnant at the time. And I remember she was like, okay, I've been waiting for you to ask, like, well, why don't we talk after the holidays? And I was like, So then I didn't ask for another year. I started dating somebody else in the SCA, my kid's father, Solomel, and I remember it really got down to the point where he's like, if you don't talk to her, I will. And I was like, okay, fine. So I asked Karin, and she, again, was just like, what is your problem? She agreed to become my Laurel, and then at Uprising that year, we formalized our association, and she was my Laurel, so it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. How long were you apprenticed to her?
I'm terrible with dates, so I want to say it was like maybe like 2-ish years, maybe 3. Anybody want to check that? Mason, go look. It wasn't very super long, because I was pregnant with Olivia at my apprenticing, because very weirdly, not really weirdly. So I had a full-blown Italian persona, as you can tell. And I know, right? I had this strand of pearls that my great-grandmother, when she passed, had been given to me. My great-grandmother was the first person who really kind of taught me an art besides my mom. And I remember she taught me canvas. Oh, did I just pull that off? That'd be great if I just pulled it. No, whatever.
We're getting naked now.
I literally just pulled it out. Well, I went to go adjust it because it was itching, and I was all bloop. And I'm all, oh, well, I mean, you can't even tell, right?
Mm-mm. It's a spider. Kill it.
Don't look, Casimir. When I do it, I'm just gonna take that other one off. Then there's no point in it. Okay, there we go.
Now you're balanced.
I got all fancy for you. I knew something was going to happen that later I'd be like, you are such a dork.
Look, Grassy.
There it is, right there. Pinkies up, people. Just tore my magnetic eyelashes off in the middle of this.
So that's out of the way.
Oh, good to know. But she taught me how to do needlepoint canvas, and I had been given a pearl necklace, and pearls are huge for Italian. And at my apprenticing, I cut the strand into a bowl. And at my apprenticing, I asked everyone who witnessed it if they had faith that one day I would be asked to join the Order of the Laurel, if they would take a pearl from this necklace and hold it in trust until the day the crown called for me. I'm getting chills at my own nerdiness. And then at that point, I would ask for the pearls to be returned so that they could be strung with my laurel medallion. And yeah, so I remember I was emotional and pregnant with Olivia, and I was crying like I couldn't even see. And I was like, I'm really sorry, but I'm pregnant. And Dame Thea, I miss you. She was like, well, I mean, you would cry either way. And I was like, I know.
True facts.
And those pearls went everywhere. I got so many of them back. I got almost all of them back, and it is on my necklace that the kingdom gives you a laurel medallion, and it's a big gold one, and the pearls are on there. So
that's awesome.
It's really cool. I still have a couple pearls for when my girls get called forth, and I kept a couple of them back, so I have pearls for anybody.
So you have apprentices now?
I have 3. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep. I waited a year, like I would suggest every new peer do. But I waited a year, and I have 3 apprentices. So
very cool. So we kind of haven't talked about what your passion is. What is it that so in my kingdom you don't get told what you're laureled for. I just kind of know what I was doing when I got laureled. Is it different there?
It's yes and no. So I think in my kingdom they want you to kind of have a mastery. But I also think just culturally wise in the SCA in general, I think we're seeing more generalists than we were before. I just think it's kind of a thing. So if I were to tell you what I was laureled for, it would be I am a generalist laurel with an emphasis in performance arts. Conrad and Cortland elevated me to the Order of the Laurel. So my first king and queen elevated me as well. That's
pretty special.
Crazy. Yeah, it was so cool. Like I was really awesome. I was really excited about that. And I heard that there was kind of a moment in the Laurel circle where at the time Timur was prince and I was his herald, and he was like, oh, well, we'll do that. And Conrad just leaned forward and he's like, we have this. So
no, this one's ours.
Which would have been cool either way. Both are cool friends, but like kind of to have your first king and queen also elevate you is like amazing. So so I was a generalist with an emphasis in performance arts. So I am a bardic artist. I do vocal performances, and then also I am a court herald. So yeah.
You have a voice.
I apparently do. So funny story, I kind of refused to sing in the SCA for a long, long time. I thought it was cheating. I had been classically trained and had taken like voice lessons and had done it professionally for a bit. And so to now then come into my hobby for me, not saying anybody else has got to do this, I thought it was cheating to do something I knew a lot of. And
I actually know 2 like historical singers like that went to college for that who are the same way. So
and that was kind of like, again, that's not to impugn anybody else's fine works, whether they be in the SCA or in their own personal lives. That was my path to take. And I will definitely say that for the couple of years, and Karin can attest to this, I kind of waffled. Like I made garb because you have to make garb. Everybody's got to have clothes. I did Scribble. You were talking about this earlier because when I had first started playing,
I have pictures.
Somebody told me when you first started, I thought it was funny too, because what I would consider like my best scroll ever, you didn't have a picture of it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I think it's interesting when people, to see other people's opinions of your art too. So somebody had told me in the beginning that if you wanted to be an artisan of worth, you would know how to do a scroll. That any peer, any Laurel should be able to be called upon by the crown to create a scroll if necessary.
I don't get to be a Laurel then.
Well, and I told you this before, it don't have to be a good Laurel. I mean, don't have to be a good scroll, people. It can be like paint by numbers. It can be, but that was a thing that it had kind of impressed upon me, is that was one of those kind of core arts that you should have.
Yeah.
Sort of like, when they talk about if you want to be the Shiv, you should be able to play chess. You should be able to discuss war tactics. That was kind of a Laurel thing. You should be able to make a scroll. So
I can make scroll-like objects. I've done some beautiful cloaks as scrolls, but paint is not my friend.
And that's okay. I mean, it kind of goes back to that whole generalist mindset too. Like I have said before, I have a really, I think, well-rounded knowledge about every major art there is in the SCA. I can probably have a conversation with you just about everything we do. And
it's going to be my mission now to stump you.
Okay. I mean, well, and the caveat to that is, if I don't know, I will be able to point you in the direction of somebody who does.
Yeah.
Which I think is the other part that you should be a Laurel. Like to the point where we had a timing snafu a couple years ago. They were hosting the Known World Bards or Known World Heralds and something symposium in Loxollen. I don't remember what the second part was. Heloise could tell me. And we had an instructor who was supposed to come teach about silk banners, these ones. And there was a timing issue and they didn't quite make it. And it was the first class of the day and it was like jam-packed with people. And the autocrat was just like, what do we do? And I was like, I mean, I've made a banner. I can go in and talk. And I literally went in and I was like, hello, I'm Fia. And I'm going to talk to you guys about banners. And I like sat on the edge of the stage and I kicked my feet the whole time with my Starbucks cup. And I was like, so we have like a scheduling conflict and the instructor can't be here, but I've made a banner and I'm here and I'll talk to you guys about it as long as we can agree on a couple of things. Number one, I'm not prepared at all. So go with that. And then number two, I'm gonna tell you what I know. It's not gonna be the gospel truth. And like just kind of just winged it, just did it, and that was it. So I think that that's important for a Laurel too. Like that's my personal mindset, is that you should have a good working knowledge of just
a lot of things.
Yeah. So do I do scribble? Yeah, absolutely. Do I sew clothes still? Yeah, I do fabric stamping, a lot of stuff. I'm getting into metal work. But they will tell you that I am a bardic artist and I'm a court herald, which I mean I am. So the first time
I look forward to seeing you sing someday. And my sister and I have a secret project that we would like your help with at some point. So.
Well, I'm all down for that. I'm down. I actually, funny story, when you asked me last week if I wanted to teach, I actually started writing a song. I got as far as like one verse and the chorus, and it made me really kind of upset that I never finished it, because it actually had to do with right now and like quarantine and everything and how we're not playing. And I mean, the chorus basically was like, I'm not going to sing it because then I'll just cry and that'll be terrible. But it was really impactful, at least to me, was like kind of basically this was like fire up your laptops, your tablets and screens, and go and visit in kingdoms that you never would see. Oh, now I can't remember it. And take all the classes, the lectures and calls, and remember the dream is what connects us all.
Nice.
And so one day maybe I'll finish that and sing. So it was one of those moments where I was kind of struggling with, this is hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
And it popped up and you were like, are you going to sing? And I was all,
no.
I know, right? If I mean, I'm sure Kaz is sitting there probably in the thing like, sing Flower of the Desert, because that's his jam. So he always wants me to sing Flower of the Desert, but no.
Someday.
Oh, he hears it enough. If I'm at an event that he's not at and I'm going to sing it, we call him and put him on speakerphone. So he's in like 3-part harmony before. And yeah, my apprentices all learn the harmony so that we can sing it for him. So
no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I have a picture of you singing with your apprentices. Should I pull it up?
Go ahead.
Let's see. Hopefully we don't have the train wreck that we did trying out. We were late because somehow her folder all of a sudden encompassed all of the pictures on my laptop.
Oh, Fia all the time. I love that. That's on to your crown tournament.
All right. So
that's Estrella. I was singing there actually.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, look at this. You have, what is this, sort of a Middle Eastern outfit? Oh, I'm going to go back.
So this was Timur and Tiana's reign when they wanted to do Mongols. So this is actually, first of all, we were at Estrella. This is Grand Court Estrella, where you all know it's balls hot. Like, it's just hot. So I wasn't wearing all of my layers, but this actually, I'm wearing a top hat. Normally I have a Mongol hat that's the horns that come up and it has the dangly bits on it. But obviously I'm wearing this. Their majesties at the time. So Greatest Showman had just come out. Like, yeah, and they were like, will you filk to the greatest show? And I was like, I mean, I guess so. So there's video of me actually leading the kingdom in, singing a filk to This Is the Greatest Show.
That's awesome. And it looks like you guys have a dragon back here.
Yeah, yep. So I don't remember if Tiana was writing it or maybe it was just one of the stick ones, but I have actually been a lady in waiting to her before when I just came back to the SCA after my break where she rode a dragon in. We all made Tang Dynasty Hanfus and she rode a dragon in. So she's done. I also was at that Australia where she rode it in as well. So but this was like everybody in the kingdom all luckily came together like the 45 minutes before court and learned this song with me and we all sang it going in. So it was one of those pretty cool moments. Pretty cool moments.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
I'm heralding. That's court heralding right there.
Right. So one of my questions is, what are you doing to kind of stay involved in the game during the Corona times and check you out? You're running court.
Their Majesties of Artemisia, Damon and Veronique, asked if I would be their herald. They live in Montana. I live in Utah. And at the time when they asked me this, it was really super cool. They're great pals of mine, and I was way willing to do it. But we were still traveling at the time, and they were like, just come to the events you were normally going to go to. We don't expect you to travel, but we want you to be our herald. And I was like, cool. And then Corona hit. The Rona swept across the nation, and stuff started shutting down. And at the time, Vigdis and Lachlan, their graces were on the thrones, and we kind of, I think in Artemisia, we were just kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. Like, are we going back to it? Are we not? Because we literally had an event. And then the next weekend, we were supposed to have coronation. And that's right. That weekend is when everything started sort of shutting down. And so this was, I believe, that's the picture of me at our very first virtual court.
Our kingdom isn't getting to do virtual courts. Like they've had announcement courts kind of, but it looks like you actually have like people attending court.
Yep. In the first one, and I think that if I'm looking at that correct, that may have been pre-court while we were getting all ready. But in the first couple of ones, we just had their sitting excellencies and their majesties and myself in a Zoom call, and everybody else just lived it on Facebook. As we have progressed and I've gotten better at Zoom crowd controlling, and Mistress Juliana has been so phenomenal as my co-host. She comes in every court and she does the co-hosting, and then my apprentice Maysoon does the closed captioning for every court we do. We've actually been able to let the kingdom into the Zoom, so you can watch it live on Zoom, you can watch it live on Facebook, and we've had upwards of like 100 people between the two, which is pretty good. I mean, for a court, especially in a kingdom my size, that's pretty big. We just did an elevation 2 weekends ago, I think. Maybe this last weekend, not this last weekend, but the one before that. So, yeah.
That's super cool. I think that having those joyous occasions of, people getting elevated and people getting recognized is so important. And I'm missing that.
Yeah.
I'm missing that. And I haven't really watched any other kingdoms courts, but I think I'm going to start because I don't think we're going to get that anytime soon. So
and ours are on Facebook, and we're slowly getting them uploaded to YouTube as well. I mean, I just, for a hot minute, I just got to really super give a shout out, first of all, to their majesties, David and Veronique, for allowing themselves to be drug along with my crazy plans, where I was like, we can still do this. We can make it work if you will let me try. And they have been just so amazing with let's try this and let's try that. And they were cool when I was like, how about we let the whole kingdom in? How about we try? We've had 2 different challenges in the kingdom that were kind of like my brainchild children that their majesties were willing to sponsor. That the first one was Maskapalooza, where we all did masks because it was kind of an inevitable thing. And the last one we just did was Bagathon. And I'm super grateful that their majesties have been willing, because like you said, I mean, your kingdom's not really doing courts. There's a lot of kingdoms who really aren't. And Damon and Veronique have just been amazing with the do what you're gonna do, girl. Like, let's just go. And I'm just so grateful that they're willing to ride that train. And they're just kind of like, she's crazy, but
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome.
I would invite anybody to come watch an Artemisian court. Come hang out, come do whatever. Our next event actually will be a smaller event. It's the first weekend in October. It's an investiture. So it will just be a couple hours of court where we just one out, one in, and whatnot. So
we've had a couple of baronial investitures.
We've done one. We have 3 more during the next until the end of January. We have 3 more to do. So don't choose
to take on that job, which is already, my husband and I joke that there's no way that we would ever do that job. It's the hardest thing to do in the SCA because it's just this sustained.
The Herald?
No, the being Baron and Baroness.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
And to take that job on in these times is remarkable.
I ran one time with the kids' father, and we were not selected, and that was okay. We obviously weren't ready. We were so young in the SCA too. And now looking back, I'm all
yeah. I just shout out to anyone who's stepping into that role right now, because that's a big deal.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, and I mean, even then, shout out to anybody who's willing to even toss your hat in the ring. Like, having been there, that's hard. It's not an easy role. So
no. Selection process is tough.
Oh yeah, I know when the last time they asked me if I would consider it, because I'm already a court baroness, and in our kingdom, court baronies get 2 inches of coronet, and if you were a landed, you get 2.5. I made this.
What is this then?
Pretty impressive by Artemisian standards. Everybody be like, Your Majesty, I don't know where you're from. And that's a thing. Like, Braden will tell you, like, the baronial coronets, the official ones here in our kingdoms, like, they are balls big. Like, we have big coronets. Braden tells a story about when he and Juliana went to Penzig. I think it was Penzig or Estrella, as landed Baron and Baroness from Arnhold, which is in Idaho. They have these big old moose purpley, they're gorgeous coronets, but they had people who are like, Your Majesties, because they're so big. But when I got asked it, like, after I gave, like, like, would you consider submitting your name, and I had to decline because 1, I have this job, and 2, you never know if I'm gonna move or something like that. After I said the very serious, like, that would be an honor that I would not be able to fulfill, I was like, man, I ain't doing that work for an extra ½ inch. Like, no. So
yeah,
that's a joke, by the way. I would do the job. Just
it's a great service, and I think it's a position that a lot of people really enjoy.
Sure.
I am not social enough to do a job like that for 3 years.
Yeah, it'd be hard. It'd be hard.
So
I was really ready for it when we put our name in, and like I said, then not having been selected, it was like, oh man. So,
all right.
Okay. So that was me heralding. That's me and Ruth. Oh, look how pretty. That is not filtered, by the way. That's just a lot of makeup. That's my elevation.
Nice.
Told you I was Italian.
It's beautiful.
All the people in On Tier, like, I've only ever worn Italian 2 times, and so when I talk about that, they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, I know, right? It's weird. Like,
I just, your garb is pretty awesome, and you have a lot more clothes than I do in a lot more different time periods.
When I was younger, I liked to kind of hop around and try everything. Like, I mean, honestly, my next project for a quarantine challenge is I'm making a Trausfrau dress. So I'm gonna do some it's Mortimer. We were doing a flat Stanley type of deal, and Her Excellency Praxilla in Arnhold had found this doll that came in, if I remember right, a nativity set. And so we literally had Mortimer, and we would take him around and take pictures and selfies with him. I think he's at Her Excellency Dria's house, but it was like a total flat Stanley thing that we had so many selfies, and like we'd pose him and do all these weird things with him.
It's so awesome. There's a whole album in your Facebook
Yes.
of him, and I just pulled this one because I didn't know any of the other people.
he's a good sport for also being willing to roll. Yeah, that's some Scribble that I did. Pretty basic. This is back in the day, so that's 2012. So that's 8 years ago. I've been the royal scribe 3 times, which
holy cow, woman!
That's a labor of love too.
Why is the screen blank? There we go.
Yep, same thing. Excel 5, so that's 45.
So you're doing the calligraphy and the illumination,
which that's why you can tell the calligraphy is like this mismatch of not a real hand. Because I call it my fast Fia hand, especially if they want a scroll like right then. If I'm combat scribing, I always make it very clear. Like if we're out of it, I love that scroll. I made that scroll for my ex-boyfriend's AOA before he was my boyfriend. He has a Andalusian, he's gonna murder me later because I'm gonna be like, was that right? Persona, and that was all done. So that's Persian, Sanskrit, well, what Farsi. I really am educated, I promise. But all of that was done with a needle tip.
With what?
A needle tip calligraphy, like a drawing calligraphy. So it's a needle tip one that you have to dip. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Than it is in order to do all of that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. That was one of my favorite schools.
There are more. They all got mixed up in my rush to try to fix the.
It's Roman. Fia's Roman Italian. That's the other thing too. Like everybody will be like Venetian. No, I'm a Roman. Yep. There's me looking chubby.
Oh, that's not what I saw. What are you guys doing?
So this was actually we have an event in we would have just had it actually, an event at the end in the like the second week of September up in the next shire over called Côte de Ciel, and the event is called Harvest War. For us here in Artemisia, that's our last war, our last kingdom war of the year, because at that point this is mundanely Utah, Idaho, and Montana.
Yeah,
you can't go camping like in late October. No, man, that's not gonna work. So this is always kind of the wind down. It's a very big war. And this was at the end of court. We're done. And this is actually the arm of Her Then Majesty Vigdis, because they had let us know that they had these really cool, in my barony had sponsored it, car decals that you could get, but they only had a couple left.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, but no, you cannot get them until after court, like, because it was going to be a stampede. And I literally was like, I don't care. I went and got my money and came right back. And like, it wasn't the person. And because I went to him, sorry, Griff. And I was all, give it to me. And he was all, you have to wait. And I was all.
Look at the look on your face. You're like,
if I remember it, this is Her Majesty. Like, did you really do that? And I was like, yeah, I did. See, they're in my hand. If you look at my hand right there, that's what's in my hand is the decals. Because I had held him up and showed Timmer, and he was like, what? Like, court's not even done. Or like, court had just ended. And I was like, I know. So I think he was actually tattling on me at the moment and telling Victor to happen. And that was my face of, obviously you can tell, no F's given. That's who got
your apprentice is like, oh, she busted.
Yeah, she knows. She rolls right with me. Notice she's right there. She's ready to throw down. And my other apprentice is right behind her in the green with the yellow sleeve. That's Lady Anne. So Honorable our Noble Maysoon is right there in the kind of rusted gray, and then the green and yellow right behind that's my third apprentice. My second apprentice couldn't be there, but yeah, they know. We form.
So Timmer's gonna get it, isn't he? I mean,
he thought he was gonna tattle on me, and he thought something was gonna happen, and their majesties were all, you want to try taking them?
All I have to say is payback. I mean,
Timmer loves me too. It ain't gonna happen. See, look at that love. Look at that love.
I loved that so much. I pulled it twice. This is really cool.
So these were baronial court barony scrolls that I made for a husband and wife. They were both getting them. This is for Odfa and Hildy, who are amazing people. And also, if you can ever eat in their kitchen at an event, I'm just saying now, do it, because Lord Jesus help me. I love you, Hildy and Odfa. But they were getting matching court baronies at that event, and their majesties asked if I would make matching scrolls. And so this is what I did. Those are griffins, and It was a Norse griffin I got, and then that's mycography in runes around it. I didn't do it very small though, so mycography is much smaller than that normally. But where there are runes, I didn't want it to kind of bleed into each other, so they're a little bit bigger. Those are a quarter of an inch high. The runes are around it, and they face each other. And then they didn't actually come to court, and they knew they weren't going to come to court, so literally they had the whole court go to their encampment. So I was really honored. You know, after you've been playing a long time, you know this. When somebody asks you to make something special for somebody, it's a piece of your heart that you get to give. Like I will 100% tell you that I think the hardest art in the SCA is Bardic, and I'm sure the fires are going to start right now, and the pitchforks are going to start out, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I think the second hardest one is definitely Scribble. And that's because you spend hours and hours and hours and time and money and resources on art. And you put your heart and soul into it. And it gets held up in court for maybe 30 seconds. And then it goes home.
Yeah.
And you have no idea what happens to it. You don't know I've seen people fold up scrolls in court. I've seen them like fold them in quarters. And then that's it.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, I know I made a scroll for somebody one time and it got accidentally left in the car by their significant other, and the window was open and it got rained on. And I was just, in fact, I believe the pictures in this portfolio, I'm not going to point it out because I don't want that person to be mad at me. Yeah, Scribble's hard. Like it is definitely one of the most giving arts that you can ever see. But Bardic is super hard. And I was actually thinking about that earlier. I absolutely think it is probably the most difficult art in the SCA, performance arts in general, just because every other art we have, I love that scroll. That was the first time I really tried doing diapering, which is and fill work, which is in the center of the sun. So this was for a Golden Sun and Splendor, which is our grant service level. And their majesties at the time let me do whatever I want. And so I dug that scroll so much. And then the yellow peaks that just look like they kind of have lines in it, sort of wiggly lines, those little bumps on every single one is a crosshatch on every single one.
Wow. So
it's a lot of work. I mean, I like that, but Bardic's hard because every other art you do, if you mess up, the only thing you're out is time and materials. You start over. Bardic's not that way. You practice and you oh, I love that one too. You diligently try forever and ever and ever. And then you've got one shot. You've got one shot for about 3 minutes of greatness. And if you falter, if something happens, if the conditions aren't ideal, that's it. That's all it is. There's no go backs. You don't get to try it again. Performance arts are hard. They're definitely hard. So
and that is the role with the environment and.
Yeah. The first time I won Bard of Artemisia, we were at an outside tournament. It was Conrad and Cortland they were holding their crown tournament. So just before I had been elevated, I hadn't even been announced. And I decided that I was going to sing Bard of Artemisia because I was actually a baronial bard at that point. And it was in between rounds of Kings and Queens champions. So we're outside. It's like March, or probably, yeah, March. It's a spring kind of rainy day. Everybody's doing their thing. There's tons of people everywhere. There's armor being put on. There's fighting. And in between the rounds, artists are going out and singing. They're putting their all into it. And the reality is that singing outdoors is hard. Singing outdoors in a field is difficult.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, unless you really kind of know how to adjust, you're not really prepared for that. And I had watched artisan and after artisan after artisan kind of sort of be ignored by the populace at large. This is my first time ever going to sing on the kingdom level. And I also performance anxiety, people, just so you know, every single time I'm going to throw up every time. People always say, like, how do you do this? Like, well, first I'm going to throw up. But I was standing on the side and I remember so mad. I was just angry and irritated. And so when I got called up to go sing, I marched into the center, and I remember my resolve was just so strong. I was a little bit angry, also terrified. And my only goal at the moment was, by the time I was done, everybody at the Eric was going to be looking at me, whether it was because I sang my heart out or because I vomited right there on the ground. And it was a toss up. And to be fair, like I said, there were people who obviously were paying attention. Their majesties, I can absolutely say that. Every single time I've ever sang, Cortland has always been right there to watch me. She's always stood right there, and she's always so attentive, which I love her for. But I remember I was so mad, and I sang a song written by a lady in the middle called the Peerage Song. And there's moments in your life where everything kind of comes together in that perfect moment, and you just channel everything, and every bit of my terror, every bit of my anger and my resolve and everything was in. My vibrato was so full in my chest. I mean, I felt like my whole chest expand, and I had full head back singing. And to me, I was like this glorious harbinger of who knows. It was, but by the time I was done, everybody was watching me. They had the people who were doing rapier behind the Kingdom Pavilion had actually heard me and came around and stopped and listened to me.
Wow.
And then Conrad and Cortland named me their bard later that night. And it was just one of those beautiful SCA moments for me that it also was the thing that hardened my resolve to, it is okay to be a bardic artist. It is okay to do something that you love to do and you're good at and you have been trained at. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And also, it is okay to sing bardic music. There's nothing wrong with not singing historically accurate music, because I don't do it. I don't. I sang enough of that when I was in choirs growing up. I have no desire to do it now. I sing nothing but filk, bardic, whatever you want to call it. I call it SCA culture music because we have 55 years of history. We have giants and legends in our games. And if we don't tell the story of those legends, they're going to be lost forever. And I would rather we celebrate that than let it be lost in the annals of time. I only sing bardic music.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. I think that recording our history, however that takes place, is really important. And song is huge. I know for Ontir, there used to be an Ontir songbook, and it's like copyrighted and people can't reproduce it. And so all of this work has been
lost,
which is just like, why?
And the oral tradition is such a period thing. Like how did I learn Flower of the Desert? I learned it by sitting at campfire. That's how I learned. In my kingdom, how do we all know? Oh God, Sean, here's the song. We sing it. We only sing it in Artemisia when a night has been made, and Duke Sean normally starts it. And it was a song that I can't even wait. I'm a bad bardic artist. It was a song that for 20 some odd years, the writer asked that it never be written down, that it only be sung. And that's how you learned it was the oral tradition. And then after a while, he lifted that and everybody could do it. But in my kingdom, that is only sung at nightings. We don't sing that around a campfire. So going out of kingdom and then going to somebody else's like encampment and they start singing it. I remember the first time I was all, what are you doing? But it was such a tradition in my kingdom. Like that's how I was raised in the SCA. That's a thing. Born on the list field. Woo!
Yeah, all the knights are chiming in.
Thank you. I love you all, my Shiv. I love you so much.
So
yeah.
My friend Garon says that she has a copy of the Ontir.
Well, I would love a copy of the Ontir songbook and it's copyrighted. No, I didn't say that.
Yeah, we'll back channel that. Garon actually sung me in with an Armenian song. She is Armenian by birth and does Armenian stuff in the SCA. And I just think that song it taps into a part of our emotions that is really important, and it doesn't that part of us doesn't get hit any other way. I mean, look at Kelwyn's Knighting was amazing.
That moment, being asked to sing in that and being asked to, I remember standing up from the bench, and that was another moment where I felt full chest voice and just singing from the depth of my toes, and hearing all the strong voices around me. I remember there was a moment where I'm singing after I stood up. Casimir was kneeling in front of me about 2 people up because he's a member of the Shiv. And I was singing my little heart out. And I remember I saw him kind of look over his shoulder and like see me and give me the cute little boyfriend smile. And I was
Aw.
like, don't do that while I'm singing. Like, but it's huge. It's impactful. I mean, when you ask people so often, what's the one thing that makes the magic for them? So often it's music, whether it's bardic, whether it's just somebody playing the instrument with them, that it's such a, we all talk about, like when you talk about camping, you always talk about the drums. You always, you know what I mean? That's such a thing. And I want to be clear, like, I don't ever want to poo-poo anybody who wants to sing historically accurate music. That's just not my shtick. I
Yeah.
remember when we first kind of started, there was a woman in another kingdom on one of the Facebook groups where she kind of like thumbed her nose down in it. She's like, I won't sing that. Like, I sing historically accurate music only. And I remember reading it, and all I thought was not necessarily like, ugh, whatever. I mean, of course there was that part, but there was some of it that was just like, you're missing a whole world of music. You're missing a whole opportunity of how to reach your artists or your audience. Because I will also flat out say there is a time and place for different types of bardic singing. The bardic around the campfire or in the middle of the feast hall may not necessarily be the time you want to sing the Italian aria that lasts 8.5 minutes. Because I'm here to tell you, after 30 seconds, even those of us who know music are all, is there more bread? There's more bread. Like, you want to entertain at that moment. Like, that's when you want to sing that stuff in competition. That's when I want you to bust that out. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's hard, because then when pieces like that are done in a feast or in court, I'm going to stop sharing, but we'll come back to this stuff.
That's why I kept looking down here if everybody's like, why? Because on my screen, she was like this little box.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, okay, I was just trying to make eye contact with you. And then like every once in a while, you'll see me like, remember, I'm supposed to be looking at the green dot. So
the performance doesn't get the respect it deserves.
That's true.
And
hard.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate. And we've got some incredible musicians who do a lot of period. We've got a band that kind of roams through camp, and they play all period instruments, and they do some fun like filky stuff too. You know, they're like a rolling party, and they're super cool. So anyway, I think music is awesome.
SCA is just like anything else though, right? You do you. If in your heart is bardic, if it's SCA culture music, then you sing that. If it's learning that German operetta, then do that. If you want to learn to play the lute, do that, man. There's so much room. And there's the other thing too. I don't care if you don't have a good voice or do. I don't care. I don't care if you cannot carry a tune in a bucket. If there is a song in your heart to sing, I want you to sing it. I want you to sing it loudly and proudly. I want you to do it without fear. I want you to come running up and be like, Fia, I got this song and I want you to hear it. I might ask to get a drink first, but I'm gonna listen, because I feel like that is one of the things that we should always encourage. Just never be afraid to sing around me. Ever, 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 ever. I don't care.
That's wonderful.
You know the song I'm singing? You best sing along. Sing along's the best. So I'm waxing all like, just
raise your voice.
Right? Yeah, do it. Or if you want to get involved, to ask me, say like, how do I start singing? Where do I find place? YouTube, great equalizer.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right. So let's go back and finish these up.
I told you I was just going to talk.
That's okay. That's why we're here, right? Okay, so that one's really cool too.
It was a pillar that is, this was when Timur and Sage were on the thrones. This was, just an award of arms, just I say, but it was an AOA for a woman I knew in a couple of areas down. And that was also right in the beginning where I was getting really into diapering, and I had gotten the Book of the Hunt by Gaston Phoebus, and I was really learning to utilize the back. Yay, Maysoon! That's my apprentice and my best friend. My prime apprentice. So each of my apprentices have title, I guess. So this is prime. So she's the prime apprentice. And then my second apprentice is beta, and that is Kaylee. And then my third apprentice is Trenza. And so they all have to find first, second, and third in whatever language they prefer. And then Sir Joel actually is my student. And when I added him to the group, that was the first thing the girls asked was, does he get a number? I was like, he don't get no number yet. You got to take the belt, bro. Or the sash or whatever. You got to got commit. So, oh, Gabe and I. So Count Yuri was taking a squire at the last in-person event we had, and his squire was giving this really fantastic speech about how he had slayed all the foes, and this was supposed to be a foe, and it was a mannequin head, and like they're like he and Sumer are just kind of holding it, and the Gabe's next to me, and like they're right in front of me, and I literally was just like, "Do you want me to hold that?" So I like have this head that I was just holding on. Yeah.
I have a head too.
Yeah, I know, right? And I think that's where with Gabe is right, where he was yeah, Fia's got the head. And I was all, I do. So yeah, classy. Pinkies up. That's how we do it. Oh, that is Prime and Trenza. So that's Maysoon and Anne again. Kaylee, my second apprentice, she's currently finishing up college and whatnot. So we're kind of, she plays when she can. No worries. So yeah, this is where we were singing. This is what you're talking about. So this is Prime and Trends again, and we were singing at Solstice. We were singing what we're saying. Yeah, somebody's gonna tell me. I can't remember right now. We were singing in Italian. Remember when I said I don't sing period music? Sometimes I do. We were singing around. Oh, look at that hotness right there.
Who's that dork?
He's so dreamy. Whatever. He's that dude. I can't. Whatever. He makes me stupid in the brain head space. That's my pretty girl, Liv. My baby girl. She's a delight. No, I love her. She's so sweet. She's sweet and a handful. So this was Solstice. This is that high court event I was talking about. So this was on Tier Crown tournament. I think it was the second time that Kaz was fighting for me. This is when Kjartan and Shea were on the throne, if I remember right. I think it was. I could be wrong.
Is it? Because I think this is Kjartan right here.
I could be wrong. I don't remember who it was. Who knows? We fought a couple times. But what happened was, in on here, you do the whole lineup, right? According to OP. So then we all stand in the line. And then when you get up, you're supposed to have a card that you've now written your titles on that you hand to the herald right there.
Right.
I love you, Casimir, so hardcore, but his planning ability is 0. Kills my Virgo heart and makes me so paranoid. So literally we're like 2 people away, and I was like, do you have the card? And he's like, it's here someplace. And he like pulls it out of his sleeve or something, and it's just got the number on it. And I was all,
my man.
yeah. And so literally, we get up there and the heralds are waiting for our cards. And I was all, can we announce ourselves? And they're like, yeah, sure. So then they do the whole pike things. And this is me kneeling as we're walking up, because at this point I had been like, your majesties, though I have traveled afar from great distant Griffin lands, I found this poor knight on the side of the road bumming a ride. Obviously, he needed some of my assistance, and asked if he could find. I mean, it was like super hilarious. And this was right after I was like, "Is it cool if we approach their majesties?" And they were dying, and I wish now I don't. Maybe it wasn't Kjartan and Shea. I think they may have won that day actually. I don't see. Good Lord, it's hard to keep 2 crowns.
How can you keep track of 2 kingdoms?
I can't. I really cannot. And it was the most hilarious thing ever, because they were dying laughing. And maybe Kaz remembers who it was, but I was just like, I am not meek and mild when I get that tiniest bit of courage. I have so much social anxiety and just, it's crazy. But once I get going, man, I'm like, and also people always ask all the time, like if I write it down, I never do. I'm just as surprised at you as you guys are when it comes out of my mouth.
So now my head is watching us.
I see that. It's creepy. As long as people can't see, he's got a thing about mannequins, which I don't blame him. They're creepy.
Well, there's like a whole host behind me.
I'm sure that is making him twitch.
Yeah. Artemisia likes to announce us in, and I think that's really sweet. And no matter how many times I try to help the poor heralds pronounce my name, it always goes really, really bad.
So as a herald, I have just, and I talk about this every single time in whenever I give a herald class, which is if you can, in the very most subtlest of ways, find out the proper way to pronounce somebody's name.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It is amazing to take that extra step and say somebody's name correctly. If you can,
ours always do, and like I'll spell it out like in 3 words. I'll say it's Ash, Axe, C, and then like all these other syllables get thrown in, and it's just bad.
I just do the best I can, and then when they come up, I just apologize. Like I think that's the other thing that I would say to every single herald out there. Like if you mess it up, just say sorry. Just apologize. Yeah. Like there's just apologize for it and move on. Like, and it also, please don't make a big deal out of it, because this person is, now they're kneeling here and you're like, I'm so sorry that I can't figure out how to say your name, but it's got like a billion like consonants in it, and it's Gaelic, so it's like 5 vowels and it all means Bob.
And you know,
just do the best you can.
Don't flip out when someone mispronounces your name, because it's just it's just a name. It's okay.
I mean, I think going back to that whole thing, I think it's important as much as possible to find out, because these names are so important, because they're names we picked for ourselves.
Yeah.
Names that we took the time. It's not our given name. This is something that our parents gifted us. This is something we've chosen for ourselves. So to try and figure it out, like, it was very important to me. One of the first elevations I ever heralded was for His Grace Ronan. And it was really important for me to go talk to him to find out how to say his name, because it's Ronan Girson Ta Ro Tolati. And I was just like, I'm not messing that up, man. I gotta know how, like, say it slower. Slow. No, okay, wait, hold on. Okay. Like, and I had it written out so I could figure it out. And that same event we did a surprise pelican for a lady in Loxellen, and I sort of super sneaky went and asked her, like, how do you say your name? Which she told me later she had no idea why. Oh Lord, you're typing. What's going down?
Mari just said that I told her a sexy is how you pronounce my name, and that's Misty. Rifkin does that. Oh. That's how she does it.
I see.
And that's my second unfortunate.
Hey, sexy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah. Do your best. I mean, that's the thing. Do your best. We're all just trying.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's court heraldry is something that I've always wanted to do. And I'm a little scared too, because when I get really uncomfortable, I start giggling and I can't stop.
Well, I think it might be easier in your kingdom too, because your kingdom is very scripted. The herald's job in your kingdom is so different, vastly divergent from what my kingdom does. In your kingdom, having watched them, been behind the thrones, it's all very much written out. It's all in a book. It's all, everything's right there. And the heralds in your kingdom do not always, in my kingdom, for most crowns, the herald is a part of the show. Mm. In some kingdoms, the herald is absolutely you should be heard but not seen. You are not the focal point. You're here to just call out. And the crown should absolutely be the focal point. In my kingdom, a lot of crowns rely on their heralds to help set mood and timbre and flow. And I was very lucky that Timur and Sorsha were my first king queen to herald for, and we went into it. It was honestly, day one, I believe they actually asked Braden if he would do it, and Braden was all like, ask Fia. I had pitch hit it at that point. I had just kind of done a little here and there. So first royal gig was like the first royal gig. And when I talked to them about it, I was like, well, how would you like this to go? And they were like, just do you, make it memorable. And it's gotten to that point where when other people ask me to do it, it's always do it Fia's way, just do it. Right. And that's why some crowns don't ask me to be their heralds, because and that's okay. I never have hurt feelings about that, because I've said this 80 million times in herald classes too. I am not everybody's herald, and that's okay, because I don't want to be everybody's herald. And other heralds who want to get into it should not necessarily try to herald like me.
Right. Your own thing.
Yeah. Find your own way. Like I said, I don't write it down. I mean, I write my court plan down, but all of the processionals, I mean, I don't write that. I have no idea what I'm going to say until we walk in. That's why Brahim got called the Ayatollah of rock and roll at Ursulmus. I have literally heralded in like we were at a prayer tent revival before. I have heralded in like basically like here we are, rock you like a Griffin hurricane. I've done 80 million different styles of it. It's always loud. It's always the way it is. But inevitably, the crowns that come to me or the baron and baronesses that come to me and ask me if I will herald for them, it's always been like just bring the show. In our kingdom, the herald is always that trifecta of power. It's actually that, I guess, where the herald is you're directing all the moving parts, but you're the one who's got you help set that. And to me, I have a very different opinion, I think, than some people do.
See, we have that kind of broken off. Like we have a kind of collection of bards who do like in a period style. They're really good at, I'm thinking of the Baron of Three Mountains, Felix.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Antonio, they do these just, but they don't do the court heraldry stuff.
Sure.
They announce you in.
Right. And that was kind of, it all happened at the same time for me. And to be fair, you have a much bigger kingdom than we have. You have a bigger kingdom with 2 principalities and all this other stuff. Like, to be very honest, you guys don't got time for that to get through a court. You don't, like, your kingdom was the first one I'd seen where you actually didn't have, baron and baronesses sitting in court. They all had to sit out there because there just isn't space for everybody. That was the first time I'd really seen that. And so Artemisia is just different. We only have 6 baronies, I think now, so for us, it's all about the show, and every crown's going to do it different.
Yeah.
And every herald's going to be different. I herald completely different from the way the other heralds do. We have a couple core heralds that we continually get asked, and I'm different from them. And so that's okay. That's okay. I had something impactful to say, and then I started rambling, and I don't remember what it was going to be.
Oh, and I interrupted you too.
Okay. I'm sure it'll come to me, or it won't, and then I'll be like, Fia's really smart.
You can always go back and like
edit, like that right there. No, I just heralding is my favorite job. It seriously is. It is. Lord Jesus, it is hard. It is for somebody who honestly has a lot of social anxiety and a lot of performance anxiety to be a herald. But it's my most favorite thing to do. I love it. I love being a part of that. I love what that service. I just, to have those moments in order to gauge the crowd. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about. Just remind me of that.
Okay.
It's interactive. I'll just even work it in. Court for us is more interactive. It's a lot of people think of court as a display. The crown and the sitting royalty are there to entertain you. And I tend to view court more as an interactive experience where what we are doing is so that you may react back with us. I am gauging whether or not you're laughing. I am gauging whether or not we are creating somber moments for you. I am gauging whether or not, is this evoking emotion? I hate when people say they hate court because it's boring. Court can be some of the most magical times you ever see.
Yeah.
And I think that if it's not that way for you, I hope one day you are blessed enough to have a herald and a crown or royalty or nobility who make that happen for you, because so many of the most wonderful magical moments happen in court. And I think, not to be like I'm so cool, but having a herald who can figure out that ebb and flow. Yeah. And we just talked about this in my digital heralding class last weekend, knowing when it is time to be the show and knowing when the show has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, that's important.
Very important. Yeah. And not everybody knows that. So.
And I think going back to how big our kingdom is,
for sure.
Our 12th night, we pick up like a whole double ballroom, and it's standing room only, and you're dripping in sweat because it's too crowded. And even talking a little bit amplifies hugely. And so you really have to just sit and be quiet. And there's a lot of business. I mean, it's going to be 4 or 5 hours minimum.
Yeah. I've never made it to your 12th night because my barony had its signature event at 12th night as well. And it was usually an every other year investiture. But I remember I came up there for a collegium, and at the time Sean was Prince, and he came up with me, and so he asked if I would herald him in because he's sitting royalty, and I was like, yeah, Lord, give me strength. And then that was just a collegium, and I just remember I was like, Lord, and like poor Sean, who also works graves, is like kind of nodding off, and I have to like keep like nudging him, like, hey, wait, you're gonna find somebody in your lap if you don't wake up. Like, I'm gonna come sit and sleep on you if you don't get wet. You know, that's the thing. And I mean,
bring you puppies. Wake up.
seriously, Lord, yeah, yeah. You guys, you have a lot. I mean, the first time, and to be fair, I love going to Ontier and heralding there. I've gotten to herald in for Ursulmus for the Collegium and for Sport of Kings. And Ursulmus, that was the time where I did. I mean, I was just like, it was a great story. They had forgotten us. Raheem was king, and I was there with Kaz, and he had asked if I would herald him in. I was like, yeah, sure, because he didn't have any retinue with him because he'd just come over to fight. So I was like, yeah, got you, Your Majesty, of course. And they had forgotten us. Like, our bench and everything was up there, but they had forgotten to put us in the line of precedent. So, and Eric was the king at the time, who, bless his heart, he's always just kind of, whenever I see him, he's always very nice to me. But
so gracious.
We had gotten through everybody, and Brahim is just like, I mean, maybe we'll just go sit down. And I was like, there is a bench up there with our banner on it, Your Majesty. We are going to go. And I remember I just like stepped out into the middle of like the foyer type deal, like leading up, and I was all, and like Eric saw me, and he was all, and, like you can see him like kind of turn around and be like, did you guys forget something? Did you guys forget? And so at that moment, the herald called us forth. His Majesty's invite, His Majesty of Artemisia, to come in. And even though I had watched everybody else not do this, in our kingdom we process and we announce as we go in. In your kingdom, you invite people in, and usually the herald will say something. Like the herald up there says something, not the herald with these guys. That's not how we do it in my kingdom. Like, that is the show. That's the pomp and circumstance. That's how you set court. And so at that moment, I remember I looked at Brahim, and he's all, do your thing. So I was like, I got this. And I remember this was such a great moment because I was like, on tier. Because in my kingdom, I always do Artemisia, And I was like, on tier. And then the whole populace was all, on tier. And I was like,
yeah, we do that.
Thing? I know, and I didn't know. And I like literally stopped walking. I was like, is that a thing? You guys do that? That's amazing. I'm like, can we do it again? Yeah, I was that dorky herald who was literally overcome in the middle of a processional. And I was like, can we do it one more time? I'm like, on tier. And they all did it. And I was like, I'm heralding Brahim up, and I'm just being my door. Like, again, I called him the Ayatollah of rock and rolla, come forth from the Griffin Mountains. And I was just like, because I had even said, Your Majesty, may I introduce my king as is our custom in our kingdom? And of course, Eric was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, what's he going to say at that point? No. No. Thank you, Eric. And yeah, I seriously was going full out, and we got up there, and like, I just kind of like, bowed as you get to the crown, and then go to walk around. And Eric's like, nicely done. And I walked by, and Steer Car was on the side holding the sword or something. He high-fived me. But as I was walking up, I look over, and Kaz is deeply in conversation with somebody, which I was like, really? But I love you. Really? I like have one job, and you can't stop talking for a minute. And so literally I'm in the middle. I know, right? Look at me. And I was walking and literally heralding, and I was like, hey, baby. And then I go right back to heralding, and you see Kaz look over and be like, hey, and go right back to talking. So then I went behind the thrones, Brahim sat down and everything. And I don't even know who it was, but somebody fantastic from your kingdom came up and gave me a little token. And they were like, this is from the Moneyers Guild made these for our heralds. And I just wanted to give this to you because that's the way you herald. And we don't
awesome.
Often. So it was like one of those huge moments, like, man, I'm here to tell you, if you want to herald, same thing with singing, just do it. Ask. I'm always looking for people who are interested in doing it. And the hardest thing about heralding is that we always need heralds. Everybody needs heralds, whether it's field herald or court herald. I don't know nothing about book heraldry. I know colors can't touch, but I can't help you with that. Nothing about it. But yeah, just say I want to do it.
Yeah.
There's always going to be somebody who's willing to help you and get in. Always, 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 always. Even if all you're going to do is stand next to me in court and see how it goes, so you can see from behind the thrones to know that this is what it's about, because it's intense. It's intense.
Yeah.
Intense.
Yeah. Being behind the thrones is different.
Yeah.
It's fun.
We're still talking.
Wow. So we are almost 2 hours in.
Well, to be fair, we started late, and anybody who's still hanging tough with us, thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? I have a couple more questions, but
no, go ahead and ask then. Those usually prompt conversation, so I don't really have an agenda.
so one of the things that I kind of ask everybody is, you've been doing certain things during COVID to kind of keep, and you've been doing more than most. What do you hope carries over?
Oh, I sincerely hope the accessibility continues. And just this in general, not necessarily, I mean, this is super time consuming for anybody who's doing an interview series, that, all the different ones that are available, any of the online things that are happening right now. That is a labor of love, especially if we go back to being able to do eventing, because right now, all of the time that we'd normally be utilizing to do in-person events or prepare for in-person events, we're doing this instead. I actually lectured somebody the other night when they were kind of like, the whole online thing's not really grabbing me. And I was like, no shit, it's not grabbing anybody. This is obviously not ideal.
Yeah.
All of us want to be able to go to real events. But the reality is right now, this is what we have. And if we aren't careful and we don't continue to produce, whether it be in small ways or in big ways, what can we really look forward to coming back to? So
Right.
I really hope this part continues. I hope the sharing of knowledge continues, and not even just on the art side, the fighting discussions, all of these things. I've been able to listen to Misty's Rithkin's Duke series, especially as I am taking this time to get fighting, just doing my Pell work every single day.
I'm so proud of you.
Not that I can't even remember his name right now. Don't kill me, please. Nobody kill me.
Whose name are you trying to remember?
Sean's night, and Rob's gonna kill me, and Sean's gonna kill me, and I know he talks about you
Brian
should.
Paragon.
Thank you, Brian. Sorry, Brian. Sorry, Brian. Sorry, Anna. Love you. Probably gonna get kicked out of the house for that one. One of the things he talks about is that you should never even put on armor until you've done Pell work for a lengthy period of time. And I've been waffling back and forth for a while, because there are hurdles definitely to getting into fighting, especially if you're not getting into fighting right when you first join the SCA. Like as a peer, as a mom, as a geographically single mom, like there are hurdles to it. But I'm taking this time now.
You're making it a priority.
I absolutely am. And my fitness is stupid knee, lifting weights every single day, doing the cardio that I'm doing, strength training, all of that stuff, like even like the dorky Switch things that I'm doing. You have a Nintendo Switch. I'm doing Pell box. I'm doing the Switch boxing. It's literally all about learning to move my feet, learning to move about. I'm taking that time to do this now. So I hope that the accessibility that we have gotten, because of the generosity of people willing to give their time and efforts, you, your sister, everybody who does a thing, I hope this continues. I hope that we see more courts recorded. I hope that we see more classes and more things, because the reality is it's always there. It's always been an option. We could always do it. My kingdom, a very lovely lady in my kingdom, Germain, started Facebook Living courts in my kingdom about 2 years ago, just on her cell phone, just doing it because people couldn't be there to see stuff. And
we've had a group of people that have been doing that on and off when they can get reception.
Oh yeah. And that is, she ended up buying a tripod for it and extra batteries for it. And it's such a labor of love. And we were one of the first kingdoms to kind of start doing that like all the time. And it was literally just born out of a desire to share when we can't be together. Yeah. Artemisia is big. We have a very, very small population, but literally it's Montana, Idaho, and Utah. The breadth of my kingdom is gigantic. You can't, and a large part of our kingdom is shut off from the other part for a good 5 months of the year because of snow. I can't get to Montana in the winter months. I can't, or I'll never get out of it. And just, I really hope that continues. I hope that that is a thing that continues on and that we remember. that is
Well, and I think both Rifkin and I have talked about it, and I think that we want to continue it. But thank you for recognizing
oh God, no.
I mean, it's been such a gift to make connections, but behind every interview, there are extensive text messages. There are, going through somebody's pictures and making a slideshow. There's,
Well,
you have to go and check out their OP and do some research. And she's done over 60 Dukes.
Yeah.
Right. And
oh, no, don't say it like that. She has interviewed over 60 Dukes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Phrasing. We're doing phrasing. Sorry.
That's still
but the
love you, Misty.
and we kind of talked about it a little bit before. It's not easy to agree to do an interview.
Nope.
It's not easy to be put on the spot for an hour and a half. So everybody that's doing these and trusting us, giving us their trust to not embarrass them, to put them in a good light, that's huge, and we're so thankful for that.
Yeah, it's emotional labor on both sides. Like I would love to do what you do. I would so love to be a part of your sister's network somehow. I don't even know how I would fit into that, but I would love to do it. I know Casimir is probably screaming at me right now. I would. And I know like my apprentices and I are kind of working up a plan for a YouTube series that we'd like to do in a completely different vein of kind of small tutorials that are like 5 to 10 minutes long of basic SCA things that nobody ever talks about certain things in the SCA. Nobody ever talks about like, unless somebody shows you how to do a buttonhole stitch, you don't ever know. You know what I mean? And that's things like that. And we've talked about, because there's not a lot of that online. There's not a really good way. And we've also talked about like trying to do something where we talk about just SCA life in general, life with kids. How do you camp with kids? How do you do this? The things that we've all learned that if you ask a new person and they'll say, well, nobody really told me that. I never knew that if you have an air mattress, you should absolutely put something underneath it.
Right? Or you freeze.
No, yeah, or you freeze. Or nobody ever reminded me that you should absolutely make sure that you put, if you're going to wear full pajamas when you go to bed, like make sure they are clean pajamas, make sure you take your socks off and put new ones on, stuff like that. I mean, I knew that, but it's just stuff like that in general. But I that's the parts that I hope and it's emotional labor. It is such emotional labor, because the other part of that, Atoxy, that I don't think people realize is it is taking a lot of time that you have to go and you have to just getting the pictures that you got from my Facebook and everything. And you and I talking, and I mean, we're friends and that's great. And we talk all the time.
Yeah.
But me, you don't always know the people you're going to interview.
Yeah.
So that's emotionally taxing on you. Plus it's taking time away from your family. This is time you have to take away from them and say, I have to do this. Like my kids are with my parents right now. Hi, Livy and Khalid. We're there, I had to figure out, where my kids could go for 2 hours or whatever as I did this, because this was important, but it's time away from our families that I don't think a lot of people.
Yeah. Molly said to me tonight, she's so sweet. I said, I'm sorry. I know that it's kind of a bummer, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, because daddy's out doing Pell work every night. And then I do this on 2 nights a week. And she said, Mama, this is important for your mental health. You need to do this.
Yeah, which I love you, Mal. Yeah, no, I get you.
Totally right.
Because I mean, Lord, I am not a perfect mama. I can't even tell you how many times I yelled at children today where I was like, I swear to God, if you don't do your schoolwork and turn around and look at those laptops, I'm gonna flip out. Muted so your teacher can't hear me. Yeah, I mean, but it's moments like this. It's when I get to Zoom with my girls and hang out, and it's when I get to spend, hours on the phone with Kaz every night. Like, it's just, I think everybody's doing the best they can right now.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to remember to extend everybody, including themselves, a whole hell of a lot of grace. Yeah. So 25 minutes later, not really, like 5 minutes later, what I hope continues is just this. I have made connections with people I probably would have never met. And that was kind of where I was looking at in the song I was writing too, is, turn on your laptops, turn on your tablets, do the best you can do. I've gotten to take classes in other kingdoms I would have never had a chance to go to. Yeah. I've met people that I never would have, never ever in a million years, from Lockhack, from Jockenwald, from all these different places, I never would have had those opportunities, or it would have been very difficult. And in the end, there's still this whole society there's still this whole group of us that are doing the best we can to connect and make those connections and keep the dream going, even when it's hard.
Yeah. And have fun. You know, I get to laugh.
Yeah.
2 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And I always laugh. It doesn't matter who I'm interviewing. I always laugh.
Kaz and so to be fair, I have actually not really watched a lot of your Laurel interviews. I did not want to watch them ahead of time so that I wouldn't have formulaic answers to any questions you would ask me. It's to be very spontaneous and just my truth in what you asked me. So now I've got to go back and watch them. Kaz and I quite often, we watch the sisters interview, or we watch the Murder of Dukes, or we watch Between Two Peers. We watch them together. Sometimes I literally am playing it on my laptop and I've got one earbud in my ear while he's talking, and then like I have to mute my computer because his is so loud I can hear it through it. So then I hope it's synced up correctly. Yeah, this is what you do when you're long distance. Love you. So
yeah, I can't imagine. I don't think my husband has watched really any of these. I think he watched Alfred because it's Alfred.
Okay, Optimus Oddies.
He's busy. He's fighting.
No, no. The nice thing about this is it's on YouTube.
Yeah, he's so busy. He works so much, and then when he's not working, he's such a good dad. So
again, though,
I'm not offended. I just think it's funny.
Work goes both ways, buddy.
I always tell him, we talked about you tonight, and he's like, "No, you didn't." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yes, we did, Octa.
And then he'll watch. So that's why I talk about him a lot. It's not because he's important in my life. It's just because it gets him to watch.
He's there, right? It's not that dude. What
Okay, well, we could go on forever, but
sorry. After your question, you said you had a couple more.
Wrap it up.
We'll wrap it up. Thanks everybody for sticking around.
Yeah, I could do like a final couple.
I literally was like, nobody's gonna watch except for my friends. I'm sorry.
But that's okay. That's okay.
Friends.
Yeah, and it always is more than, and everybody that watches ends up being your friend because they know more about you than
you. I'm a nice person. If you want to be friends with me and we're not already, just chat. I'm cool. I'm terrible at approaching people. I'm horrible at it. Terrible. Like you mentioned Mari, and I was all,
and she's so approachable. She's so nice.
Like Kaz and I were talking about the other day. I was like, I've actually never talked to Mari. I don't think I've actually met her. And he's like, you've been in the same place. And I was like, so that means I'm actually gonna like speak to her because that's Mari.
Do you have your killing tool with you this evening?
I can get it if you. Which killing tool do you want? I got. My sword's like right over there. Actually, that's why I was like, which one?
Yeah, grab it. Let's look at your sword.
Okay, hold on. I don't want to kick the thing. I'm not saying I set up a backdrop so that I wouldn't have to rely on my virtual backdrop that I use for court so that my head wouldn't disappear as I move. So I got my banners behind me. So hold on, let me get her. Oh, goodness gracious.
I should probably say something to fill time. So tomorrow, Rifkin and I, for the sisters interview, are interviewing Duchess Inga. That's going to be super fun. She does everything, and she's a really fascinating person. And then next week, I have to look it up. We are interviewing, I'm interviewing another Artemisian, Juliana, and I may be pronouncing that incorrectly.
Got it right. I can't find my sword. I think, it's in my car.
And then next Wednesday, another Artemisian.
Juliana, by the
we're
way.
interviewing Viscount Sagan.
Sagan.
So that's what we have coming up.
And I think Misty or Rifkin is interviewing my king, I think this weekend, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't have.
Okay. I think he's interviewing Damon this weekend, His Majesty. I thought I saw.
Do have the. Let's see. Yeah. Yes. On Sunday she is interviewing Damon, and on Saturday it's Edward.
Yeah, Edward's not my kingdom, but yeah. See, all Artemisia, woo woo, represent Griffins.
Well, apparently, it's like Artemisia week.
I mean, it should be. Be cool. We're cool. We are little and fierce. So anyway, it's in my car. I just remembered that's where it's at. So.
Okay. Well, I think we'll just shut it down. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I miss you.
I miss you too.
And yeah, we'll see you on the flip side or something. I don't know. I don't have a signature sign off saying.
I mean, like, Bardic Arts, yo. That's funny. I'll tell you that real fast before we go.
Do it.
When I actually got put on vigil at a different event than because I wanted an overnight vigil than I was when I was elevated. And the crown at the time was at Penzic because this was the only camping event I could be at. And so they actually asked my Laurel, Karin, if she would put me on vigil. And she was a duchess in her own right. I mean, not in her own right, but you know what I mean. Duchess, Laurel, Pelican, all that cool stuff. So that was and that was super awesome too. If Conrad and Cortland couldn't do it, having her grace do it was just amazing. But they announced me in court that I was going on vigil that night, and an individual who didn't play very often had overheard the crowd. She wasn't in court, and then she came into my vigil, or like after the vigil was done, because I didn't stay up all night long. Because number one, I had kids. Number two, at like 2 a.m. I was all. Nobody's, I mean, you know, it all kind of winds down if it's not a very big event. And I had seen people like steadily from like 6 p.m. on.
That's enough.
Yeah. So at 2 p.m. I was like, you got something to say. And we were going to have a small like tea thing anyway at actually the day of my elevation. And so I kind of went over to like the last party that was still going on. And like this lady, again, she hadn't played very much in like the recent years. And she was like, oh, I heard them saying your name. And then they told me that you were going to get a Laurel. And I was like, yeah, yep, sure am. And she was very happy in her cups, which is fine, whatever. I'm a woo girl, so it's all great. You know, when you get all excited after you've been drinking, you're all woo. Yeah, that's me. Which you know. And and she's like, yeah, I was explaining to my boyfriend that like you were like this really cool artisan and everything. She's like, and I just figured it would be really something cool. So what are you becoming a Laurel for? And I was like, oh, Bardic Arts. And like, no shit, this woman like slapped me and she's like, Bardic Arts? But what? Bardic Arts? You could be elevated. And like she kept saying it. And like one by one, the people around the fire were like dying because this woman just for a million days was like, Bardic Arts? And like my good friend Sir Roger, my man bestie, literally he will always be like, Fia, Bardic Arts. So everybody who just heard that story, you may now come up and say Bardic Arts to me. That is how I shall leave you with my Bardic Arts.
Bardic Arts.
Bardic Arts. Do them.
Awesome.
Do them. Love them. Okay. Love you, everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Bye. I have to end it now.
It is end. I did that at court. I was all.
Oh, okay. I'm ending it now. Bye.